wrote it in the Cyrillic alphabet, it would be an M and then an A and then a Ch. You can see it with a Y or.
How about the Kranacks? Were they from that same area?
Okay. No, it was called Krasny Brod. Kornikova is where the Macoskos came from. Krasny Brod was not too far away, but a little bit bigger town. Really, too many gravestones. They were so poor they used wood. After it became Kornikova, that's what it is today, which means Little Crown. One lady told me it meant like white daisy.
And the genius comes from my grandmother, certainly not through my grandfather. He was the most feared man for me. I just was scared to death of all the people I knew in the world. I was most fearful of him. He was like a gorilla. I mean, he hardly ever spoke any English, and his wife went after him with a butcher knife. Just a genius. She said, all these kids, roomers, and not roomers, I mean boarders. They're working 2 shifts.
Well, they lived in Gallasport when I first met him, before we were married. To see his grandmother, who lived the longest, was a wonderful rug maker, and she had a big loom. There was a steel mill there in Gallasport. And she said she rented her rooms for the 3 shifts, for the men to come in and sleep.
She had an apron, and she's so busy, she's working, and when she had to blow her nose, wherever she blew, she just rubbed her foot on it.
He had an Uncle Andy that was wonderful. He was always sweet and flirty, and fun. Ted's father was very ambitious, designing steel mills, and smart man, and he had his own business, which was the sign business. Mm-hmm. And so they did that in the basement, and Ted learned that early in life. He did come, 3 or 4 times up to Grand Street when we had Grand Street. He took up with this woman that was so, I don't think she was all there. They had 4 girls too. But he would buy stuff in the farmer's market, and he never ate anything at home. He just would eat the stuff that he'd buy, fresh stuff that he'd buy. And he was such a nut on health food.
3 aunts.
3 aunts from his father's side, 3 sisters. We were living in San Diego, and we would drive up to LA to see Ted's relatives. I loved Aunt Anna. She was just a wonderful aunt, and we got along perfectly.
What about Wilma?
Timmy, that was her nickname. His mother's sisters were delightful, and his grandmother was lovely. Anna was a wonderful cook, and she could make a strudel and pull the dough out real smooth. And they had this store, and he felt very ashamed of that, the Panther Hollow Bridge. And he said, this is where I came from. This is confessing the world's worst confession.
And Aunt Mary lived with what we call Grandma Kranack, and they ran this candy store down in Greenfield Valley. When we were kids, the thing we loved, we'd visit the Olanders, but we always wanted to make sure we made it to the candy store before we went home. Come on, kids, we'll give you some candy. And she'd always be nice and smiling. Couldn't speak any English. And I remember her funeral, I was the only guy that made it. I needed a place to stay, and it was available because all the other people that went to the funeral were from the Pittsburgh area. I went to her funeral and slept in her bed up there in the candy store.
I borrowed money from my aunt. I realized that the first semester I was taking my Blue Book exam and my mom took her life.
I met his mother once. She's a beautiful woman holding a baby. Then the baby died, and then she killed herself, and I never saw her again.
There were 3 sons, the 3 boys, 5 or 6 girls, and they lost a couple. My dad was pretty influential. He was able to get my grandfather Kranack a job in the parks. One day, I'm out in the park with my friends, and there's my grandfather. And I catch his eye quickly, and I don't see him anymore. My aunt said, your grandfather said you said, oh, he was? I didn't. Julia, Mary, Helen, Emma, Aunt Anna. Aunt Mary, for some reason or other, had real short legs.
I remember.
She had rickets. Well, I lived at home in my freshman year, and I disliked my father so much that my aunts helped me financially, and I worked in the steel mill. Here's my dad, a rich guy. When I went to school, the very first time, my mom wrote the check. She took formaldehyde because she talked about it enough. She knew from talking to these women that worked in the factory in Glassboro that formaldehyde would kill you. I got up and I heard their eyes were rolling.
And his father was very respected in the Russian community because he'd given a lot of help to the church, and he was the most eligible bachelor.
Mary Rudash, she was the white trash of the valley because she was the salad girl, and he was playing around with her when my mom was in the institution. He got killed. He was a great one for having all kind of insurance.
His father always said he was going to leave him the sign business and the girls and his second wife the house.